His eye or his blood, the ghoul next door. Spudguns, welcome to another episode of Night Bleeds, and today we're talking about Subspecies 2, Bloodstone. So our two main characters are Radu and Michelle. Radu, at the end of the first movie, was beheaded and left with a stake driven through his heart by his brother Stefan. Michelle had been bitten by both Stefan and Radu. So she's become a vampire, and in the first couple of minutes we see her wake up as the sun goes down and run for her life. And we see Radu put himself back together, literally, and run after her. We learn that the relic from the first movie, the Bloodstone, the ancient Bloodstone filled with the blood of the saints that will keep the vampires alive without having to actually feed on anybody, is the most prized possession in the vampire world. And Michelle doesn't really realize this at first, but she grabs it and she runs. So she ends up dead in a tub in a hotel. And then she wakes up in the ambulance and causes a scene as she runs away once again. Cut to Radu visiting his mother's grave. His mother is a centuries-old mummy witch. She's a mummified witch named Mummy, which I thought was so cute. And there's this push-pull relationship with them. We learn that Mummy used her magic to seduce Radu's father, the king of the vampires, in order to have Radu. And she had Radu, the vampire heir, simply so she could get control of the Bloodstone and the kingdom. And of course it backfires on her. And then we see Radu with having to deal with his emotions for Michelle. And we're never 100% sure if he really cares about her or if it is just that vampire control issue. So a few things here. Somehow a stake through the heart and being beheaded have absolutely no effect on Radu, but yet sunlight does. There is a complete battle of wills happening, the classic battle of self for the character of Michelle. She was the heroine in the first movie, but she is total victim in the second movie. The heroine is actually her sister, and her sister, Becky, is the only one who actually has a love interest, which I thought was a brilliant move. As Radu and Michelle fight for the Bloodstone, it's kind of in a way to a war for territory. We've also got a great metaphor going on of the classic monster versus the modern monster, because Radu is designed to look and feel like Nosferatu. He carries himself like that, he dresses like that, the teeth, everything. Whereas Michelle, because she's supposedly half regular vampire, she is very modern in everything to a point. I love the struggle that Michelle actually goes through in order to survive. We do end up feeling sorry for Radu in this film, as we learn that Mummy, she treated him like crap. Like, there is an abusive relationship going on, and Radu there's moments where he comes across as actually being terrified of her, even though he's doing his damnedest to make her happy. So you see this big chain of abuse you see this big chain of abusive relationships, from Mummy's magic over the Vampire King to her control over her son Radu, to this sire bond then between Radu and fledgling Michelle. One of my favorite scenes is the heavy metal club where Michelle, she tears into this metalhead and her outfit becomes completely soaked in the front and everything with blood. When she forces herself to puke it back up, she is disgusted with what she has become and what she needs to do to just survive. We also see Radu's evolution. He goes from this very evil stalker, literally stalking Michelle at the beginning of the movie, to this very sad and lonely character. We get the impression he may actually be in love with her, or at the very least, he sees potential to be in love with Michelle. As again, we're reminded he's never known true love or any real kindness. He's almost innocent in the fact that he's a bit of a psychopath. It's like he doesn't realize that what he's doing is not normal. And I loved the use of astral projection and shadow movement to represent the vampires being able to travel at like the speed of thought. You know, not since Nosferatu have we really seen shadows used in such a way. Another thing I thought was brilliant was having the character of Michelle unconsciously mimicking Radu in movement. You see her at one point with her shoulders hunched and her arms are out and her hands are all clawed. The way that Radu walks, she starts to mimic, even though she's miles away from him and no idea how he's moving or walking or doing anything. She's doing the exact same thing, and I love that because we see the it's just this great way to express the connection between the two vampires, and also how quickly and how easily the character of Michelle is starting to lose her humanity. Another point in this film, it literally takes a detour without feeling like it, and I love that idea. We have the professor when the character, the sister Becky and her love interest go to find answers. They go to a professor and he takes them to the castle, and we are literally given a tour of the underground tunnels. And it was just the sneaky little way the filmmakers put it in there. You do not feel like you're being lectured. It just blends so seamlessly with the actual plot of the movie that you kind of forget that you're being taken on this tour. And you have to remember the Subspecies movies, when they came out in the early 90s, like between 1990 and 1996 or something like that, these were the first movies to shoot in Romania. So this was the first time we really truly saw like Dracula's castle and all this. So this little detour, it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. The Subspecies films, they fall back into the traditional folklore of what a vampire is supposed to be, especially since it happened, these films took place at a time when we were oversaturated with the new vampire. Like, Interview with the Vampire had just come out about the same time that Part 2, Bloodstone, came out. And we had this really decided to not go the way of Lost Boys, to not go the way of Fright Night or Near Dark, but to show us some real folklore. The atmosphere in this film, it balances the idea of the Victorian vampire story with the modern vampire story seamlessly. And I think that has to do again with the actual location where it was shot. The atmosphere, it's of this film balances the feel of the Victorian story with the modern one while keeping it a believable one. It layers itself without coming off too over the top or too campy. I found the main themes in Bloodstone to be power hunger, greed, addiction, abuse, manipulation, and in some way faith. Because here's a character who has never, and I'm talking about Radu, never known goodness. And he's still got that little bit of, he's holding out that something could change, that the woman who at the moment is denying him and running away from him will see the light, and possibly love him, or at the very least accept him as an equal. The idea of the sire bond, this is one of the main movies that I can remember actually using the sire bond in a decent way. We see that obviously in Dracula, between the character of Dracula and Renfield, and even so far between the character of Dracula and Lucy. But it was never really explored in too many of the big movies. The Subspecies, especially this part 2, this is why I kind of chose part 2 to talk about, it took the idea of the sire bond of the vampire sire and fledgling, and that complicated lover slash parent slash child slash brother sister ideal, and looks at it from so many different ways. This, again, as I pointed out, you have the character of Radu, who's kind of stuck between trying to be his own man by getting away from his mother, but still wanting to please his mother, and who's trying to get this relationship started with this chick, the object of his obsession. It's a brilliant metaphor for that breaking away from your parents' hooks and becoming who you're meant to become. So that was part 2, Subspecies, Bloodstone. Tune in next time. Until then, creeping screams. I love the fact that they use the astral projection shadow speed to represent how fast the vampires can travel and how far they can travel. This comes back actually to folklore, where astral projection was believed to be the way that most vampires left their coffins. So the physical body was actually still in the ground, but their soul had traveled through the astral plane. That way they could get in and out without disturbing anything. And that's why a lot of, at the time, the vampire hunters and villagers and stuff used to believe that that's why the coffins were full of blood when they opened them up to investigate, because it did not actually get absorbed back into the physical body. It was still on the astral plane, therefore it was leaking all over the place. So, folklore trivia for you.